There was a remarkable editorial in the New York Times last week called "A Painfully Slow Ebola Response," in which the New York Times uncharacteristically skewered the World Health Organization. They used phrases like shamefully slow and snoozing on the sidelines, those are the exact words, and pointed out that the division of WHO in Africa is largely poorly managed, ineffective, and populated by incompetent personnel. And they said it all because it took the World Health Organization almost 6 months before they declared the Ebola outbreak in West Africa to be an international public health emergency, and they've only now appointed a global coordinator. I say all that because what has to be understood about these UN agencies is that they perform according to the person who's at the top. And in WHO, you have a hugely well-intentioned, undoubtedly decent person in Dr. Margaret Chan, who is, alas, an ineffective leader. And that's shown because the WHO is losing money, the donors are losing confidence, and there isn't the same culture of urgency. Now today, as I was looking at my computer, there emerged the most recent edition of The Lancet, which is the medical scientific publication, which had an editorial and again took exception to the behavior of the World Health Organization and pointed out that the other party on the ground in West Africa, those are the words, is Doctors Without Borders, and that they're performing admirably and that they rang the alarm bells much sooner. That's exactly true. I mean, I really have respect for Doctors Without Borders. They're an extraordinary organization. The numbers of people they have on the ground whenever there's an epidemic of one kind or another, saving lives, improving health systems, and they have the added immense quality of courageous political leadership. They are outspoken. Would that some learned from Doctors Without Borders. And then, as if that's not enough altogether, the UN last week declared 4 countries to be at an emergency 3 level, the highest level in the United Nations. It was Syria, Iraq, Central African Republic, and South Sudan. Well, we know about Iraq and Syria. Did you see the UN report? Nearly 200,000 people dead during the war in the last 2 years. And South Sudan and Central African Republic, the devastation of the ethnic conflict has led to millions on the move and facing starvation while the world looks on. And finally, last week, speaking of something that directly affects the work of AIDS-Free World, the president of Uganda, President Museveni, it was revealed, had signed into law an HIV/AIDS bill that people had begged him not to sign. The AIDS activists, the people living with AIDS, the internationalists. Indeed, he had apparently promised the head of UNAIDS that he would review the bill before it was approved, which turned out not to be the case. You see, UNAIDS and others, they have to learn not to be quite so naive when you're dealing with egomaniacal presidents, which is a perfect description of President Museveni. The bill has some positive clauses, but it also criminalizes and demonizes people living with AIDS, particularly women living with AIDS, particularly pregnant women living with AIDS. It's just awful in what it will do to stigma and discrimination. I need some time off. Honestly, I've had it. I'm taking a week. I won't be here next week, but I'll be back in September to torture all of those who remain susceptible. That was last week. I'm Stephen Lewis.